so let's talk about Turmoil. And so yeah, I just wanted to do a video like giving my thoughts on every party, how strong they are, and what I like and don't like about them. And I think this is probably something you can find in my channel if you watch every video. I've pretty much said my opinion on all of them at one point or another. But I just wanted to put it all in the same video. So I could have it all together. And partly it's because Turmoil is my favorite expansion. I really think it adds like complexity to the game in a good way. It makes you plan ahead more. It makes it more strategy and less chance based. And not that Terraforming Mars. I mean, there is some luck to it because of the cards you can draw. But it's like generally you see good play usually wins over luck. And I think Turmoil takes that to another level, and it's what an expansion should be. It adds to the game while connecting with it, and in a very interesting way. But anyway, what I want to do is just discuss this every party. I'm just going to go in the order of the Senate, and basically tell you my thoughts on the policy, the bonus, and where I rank each from 1 to 6, because there's 6 of each, right? So let's begin with Mars first. Okay, so Mars first, let's start with the bonus. And the bonus is 1 cash for every steel tech you own. Now, steel techs are the most numerous tech in the game. There's 100 when you include preludes and projects, and I think 10 corporations that have the steel tech. There might be more, a lot more after prelude too. But it's definitely the more, the tech that occurs more in the game. And so you could say it's a really good bonus, but it's actually my 4th favorite. And the reason is steel techs aren't great late. And so this is one of the better early ones, probably the 2nd best early, because it's you're going to play a lot of steel techs early. But once you get to 10, that's probably it if you're going for a steel heavy game. If you're not steel heavy, you might not get past 8, right? And so yeah, I would rank it 4th, just because of that, because it's really good early, but it stays there for the rest of the game. There aren't many playable steel techs late in the game, and yeah, it's just not as strong. As for the policy is every time you place a tile, you gain a steel, and I think this is one of the weaker ones. It's good early. But the thing is, like the cheap tiles, which are the tiles in the special tiles in the cards, like nuke zone or restrict area. Those tiles become really diluted when you add all the expansions. And actually, like if you play Prelude, Turmoil, base game, I would probably rank these higher. But I would say that's a very not common combination. Most people usually at colonies before they add Turmoil, so because of that, the steel techs get diluted and also the tiles get diluted, and the bonus itself is not that strong. It's usually not a significant discount, and it's also not flexible because it's steel, right? It's not bad, but again, it's a party that I find that the player whatever player puts it in power first early in the game, it's not that invested into the Senate late. Like it's more invested in blocking other players from putting in their party than putting in Mars first, right? So yeah, I would say 4th and 4th for Mars first. Now let's move on to the scientists. And the scientists. Okay, so I think science is the 3rd most numerous tag. There's only 3 preludes, but 50 cards. And by the way, I'm not counting events because those don't count. So I'm just counting like green and blue cards. Again, obviously, I think there's only one steel building event, but science events there's a few. But there's 50 green and blue cards in the game. And yeah, I think this is probably my least favorite bonus. And it's just really hard to. It could be 5th. It could be 5th or 6th, but it's down there. And it's really just not that easy to get early science techs. to give you money, and late, like you again, you're not gonna get past 10. So it's never gonna be a huge like bump in money. And like think about it, anti-gravity technology is a card that would be it's amazing every time you can play it, right? But most people hesitate about keeping it just because they don't know they're gonna be able to even see 7 science tags in a game if they don't have card draw. And when you see it played, it's usually after mid game. Whereas Builder, which is 8 billion tags when you compare it to Mars First, Builder usually can go in the third or fourth generation. So yeah, I think Science it's really the weakest bonus here. Sorry, yeah, bonus. Now let's talk about the policy. The policy is can once per turn pay 10 to draw 3 cards. And my problem with this policy is that it really doesn't help the player who's going for Science. So, because think about it, if you already have card draw, you usually what you want more is money. And yeah, paying 10 for 3 cards might actually even it out with a player who's more invested into like income and money generation cards. So if you put the Scientist in power, you might not be able to pay for your bonus, or if you do, you'll be like much more restricted that generation. Whereas a player who is just invested in money, doesn't have any card draw, now gets a huge advantage, and that's probably gonna be the Unity player. That's who I'm gonna discuss next, but that's like the money party. And the other thing, like even if you both have money, the player with a lot of science is usually the one who like has more card draw. And if you add an even amount of card draw to both sides, it evens it out. Like think about it. If one player has AI Central and the other one doesn't, so you're drawing 2 extra cards to 0, right? Now, if I add like 10 cards to every player, then one is drawing 12 and 10. I'm just like exaggerating to a straight up point, right? But 2 to 0 is a much more significant difference than 12 to 10. And in this case, with the Scientist, it's adding 3, so it's like 2 to 0 is more significant than 5 to 3. I just exaggerated to prove a point again. But yeah, basically, when I have a lot of science, I tend not to put the Scientist in power. I feel it actually works against me, and that's why this is my 5th favorite policy. Right after Mars First, it's not because it's bad, it's definitely stronger, it just doesn't align with a science strategy. Now, for a Unity player, this might be top 2, but I'm sort of evaluating and sort of like what it's supposed to do and who it's supposed to help. I don't think Unity players were meant to have 2 parties, they're supposed to have Unity, right? Anyway, moving on to Unity. So Unity has one of the strongest bonus, and the bonus is the sum of Earth, Venus, and Jovian tags. Now there are a total of 86 cards with those tags, but many of them have actually multiple of those tags. Like, Venus Governor, Sister Planet Support, Luna Governor. So there's actually more tags than that. There's probably close to 100. And unlike the building ones, like you can play the Earth ones early in the game, they're really good. And then late in the game you might be playing Jovian, or if you're going heavy Venus, this scales up crazy. Without Venus is a lot weaker. So with Venus is 86 cards, 11 corporations, 5 preludes. Without Venus, it's 57 cards, 8 corporations, and 5 preludes. And these actually might get stronger with prelude too, because there's definitely going to be some Venus preludes. But if you play without Venus, then you still have 57 cards, a lot of them with multiple tags on it. And you have some pretty strong cards to play late in the game, especially the Jovians tend to be really good. So this is my 2nd favorite policy. It's just really strong, and money goes well with money. So you like every Earth tag, every production card sponsors is like it has one more production. If you put Unity in power often, because that Earth tag is giving you an extra money, right? And so yeah, I think it's one of the strongest. It's usually the one that's like this is a player who's getting like 20 cash late in the game, from the bonus, and it's one of the scariest to let go in power late, because it's just, I mean, that's the last award, right? That's an extra greenery basically. So yeah, Unity, my second favorite bonus. But let's talk about the policy. And the policy is just recurring alloys, or half of advanced alloys. Titanium is worth +1. Again, this is really good, and what I really like about this one is that you are not like really desperate to get Unity in power every turn, or even every other turn. You just really want to plan a turn where you can play all your titanium, put it there, and especially early, right? Late, you're gonna want to put it every turn because of your bonus, but early, you don't have to really fight strong for the Senate in the first two generations. You might just, put one delegate there, Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, you get it in Gen 4, and then you play your heavy space tax, which the other thing that's good is that they don't need, generally, you don't have to play space tax too early, right? Space tax tend to be a bit, of a heavy investment early in the game, and so yeah, I think doing Unity like slowly, it's really good. Whereas with other parties like Mars First, like you want to play a tile in the first generation, you have to play, well, it's the second, because in the first the green start, like you have to play the tile in the second generation. You're really not gonna wait on Nuke Zone until you get Mars First in there. You can wait on something like an asteroid, unless there's things on the track to be gained. But just because it's a more expensive investment, and there might be other cards that you play first, right? Or even like a Jovian, like asteroid mining. You don't have to play asteroid mining in the first generation. It's good if you do, but you might use some cheaper economy builders, usually Earth techs, and then you play asteroid mining, right? So yeah, I think I really like this policy. It's not super strong, but it just works well. Like if you're a Unity player, you're a Unity player the whole game. And the other, like I said, the other thing you might want to get in there is a scientist if you don't get card draw. But otherwise, you just get Unity and get more money for, like, you'll be the richest player and then you'll get richer, right? And so I would say that Unity has my third favorite policy. So we've seen 4, 5, and 3 so far in policies, and in bonuses we saw Mars was 4th, scientists were 6th, and Unity was 2nd. So let's talk about the greens. Okay, let's start with the bonus. And so the bonus is not that strong. Now, there are a lot of plant tags and microbe tags in the game. You just don't usually play all of them. So there's 64 total, 7 corps and 5 preludes. Okay, the first thing we should say, the microbe tags tend to be bad. There aren't that many good microbe tags, and the animal tags tend to be late that you play them, right? So you're really early in the game relying mostly on the plant tags, and the early plant tags are not so good. So you're really relying on your preludes and a couple of good microbe and plant tags like Arctic algae, viral enhancers, maybe pets, but I'm not a big fan of pets. And so, like, for ecology is for example something that goes really relatively quickly, but I don't see you get to 6 or 7 or 8 quick after that, the sum of these 3 tags. And so this is my, I'm gonna say 5th favorite bonus, ahead of the scientists. I do think you get a faster start, and yeah, it's still good. That's the thing. The green player is generally the poorest player in the game. If you've invested into plants, like, that's a very expensive investment that, at least in cash, pays off pretty slow. But the fact that you get money for the player is actually really good. Like, it makes a big difference, a little cash. Which brings me to the policy, which is whenever you place a greenery, you get 4 cash. And this is fantastic. And this is my second favorite policy. No, I think this is my favorite policy. Yeah, I'm gonna say this is my favorite policy. Like, if you're rushing, this is a godsend. And together with the bonus, like, you're usually gonna have at least 2 or 3 tags if you're playing a plant game early, and these 4 if you play a greenery. You're talking about 7 to 10 extra cash, I would say, early in the game for a green player every time you place a greenery. And it just makes your rush so much easier. It really helps, like, because it helps you place other oceans or other tiles, which pick up more plants, and then your green game is gonna go a lot faster with these. And yeah, I think this is my favorite policy. I don't think there's a policy that helps its strategy more than this one. And yeah, it's just really good, and its forecast is very flexible, and early greeneries are something like Ecoline just gets so good with this. And another thing I'm going to take into account to say it's my favorite, it's that it actually starts in power. So if you're Philaris, or if you get Experimental Forest, then yeah, you're getting 4 cash, and then no other party can say that. I think the reason it starts in power is because it's probably the hardest thing to do at the beginning of the game. Like, if you think about it, Scientists and Kelvinists just require paying 10. Unity just requires paying Titanium, which a bunch of companies start with, and there's Preludes. And Mars First requires placing a tile, which a greenery is a tile, so obviously easier. And then the other one doesn't require anything, but if you don't terraform, it's good. So yeah, I think the greens is the hardest bonus to get early, and I think that's why they decided to put it in power. But it actually makes green corporations very strong, and I think playing Turmoil, again, Turmoil base plus Prelude is probably one of the best for rushing. If you can get the greens into power regularly. If you can, then it's actually going to be base and Prelude is going to be better. But if you play your cards right and you get a little help with the neutrals, then there's no better rush than those 3 expansions with the greens in power. Okay, moving on to the reds. And the reds have, I think, by far my favorite bonus. Okay, this is the only bonus that gives you a point. It doesn't give you instant cash, but like, if you get it in there early, which is probably when you want to put the reds in more, it's going to give you a lot of cash throughout the game. But more importantly, it's giving you a point. It's giving you a terraforming rating. It's a very strong bonus. And obviously, I've talked about the interaction with Priester, where you're guaranteed that. You might split it with some other players, which is fine. I mean, every other bonus, if you think about it, you're also splitting with, because any other player could have any other tags, like probably not as much as you if you put the power in power, but all the bonuses are shared. But yeah, I just think this is really strong, and to like basically do the most efficient thing, which is developing your economy instead of terraforming. Then you get priced by actually getting a terraforming rating. Now, something to note is that UNMI can't use this for its ability, but Priester can. Priester can not terraform, gets its bonus, and then gets the terraforming rating anyway. So it's interesting how it interacts with those two. I also love the flavor of the reds. Just the very like the theme and the whole flag and colors. But yeah, moving on to the policy, and I'm gonna say the policy is my second favorite, and it goes great with your bonus, and it can really punish a Russian player. So it basically does the opposite of what the greens do. What the greens do for the player, for like Ecoline, the plant player, the reds just like constrain you, because either you pay 3 more or you can't actually terraform. Like, the fact that it's not a penalty, but it actually can prevent you from terraforming, I think that can be brutal. I often see players like miscalculate this part, where they're planning their second turn, they buy a few cards, they forget the reds were in power, and if they had like Articalia and then an ocean and a greenery plan, it's even more common because they have to play 3 for each, right? So the reds are nasty when it comes to that, and I'm gonna say it's my second favorite policy. The reason I wouldn't say it's first, it's because it does more to damage another player than to help you, unlike the bonus. And so if it's a 3-player game and you invest into putting the reds in, maybe you screw one of the players, but the other player just gets the benefit of screwing that player without investing a lot into it, while probably putting delegates into his party that he's gonna use later, right? So yeah, be careful with that. As an additional note, this is also a great party for Unity players, and this is, and I think Turmoil just helps them a lot. Like if you're going heavy Earth tag, Scientist, Reds, and Unity all help you. So yeah, even though I really like the greens, I think Unity, like when you add the use they get from other parties, is kind of the strongest. But yeah, so again, the Reds are my favorite bonus, second favorite policy, probably my favorite party overall, as you can see. But let's talk about the Kelvinists. And okay, let's start with the bonus, and it's easily the strongest bonus early, right? Like nothing else can jump as fast. Like you get a couple of preludes, and maybe you're Helion, you're already 6, or if you get Solera, you can be at 10 easy. So this one can be crazy good early. The problem is that it's never gonna move after that. Like no one invests into heat late in the game. But I think that's still good enough, and I would call this my third favorite bonus after the Reds and Unity. Now it's better than both early, but late it just stays there. Like the only one I really see get like 20 is Unity. The Kelvinists, like again, you get Mohole and Mohole area, for example, and you're already at 7 in Gen 2, right? So, and then you can invest delegates into it to get that cash. And the other thing that's good is it's the one that probably excludes more players outside of you, because everybody's probably gonna have some Earth tags. Everybody's gonna probably have some building tags. Plants and microbes maybe not so much. Science probably a few. And I guess the terraforming rating, there's gonna be maybe 2 players down, maybe just you. But heat, like if you see someone go heavy heat, you usually don't try to chase him, especially in a 3 or more player game. So that bonus is definitely very good in that sense. So yeah, it's my third favorite bonus. But let's talk about the policy, because it's not. Well, you probably figured out there's only one spot left, the 6. And I'm gonna say it's 7th, because this policy is absolute garbage. It's hot garbage. You're basically never gonna use this unless you want to play for a standard project energy, and it's an emergency and you have no other way to get that energy. In which case, you pay 1 less and you get 1 more hit. On the downside, you can't use it twice, so if you need 2 energy, you're still screwed. But yeah, this is garbage. Think about it. I mean, first of all, okay, it's kind of efficient. Kind of, you get 1 energy and 1 heat for 10. Like if you think of the better heat cards like Mohole or Solar Reflectors. So Solar Reflectors, you pay 26 for 5. That's basically 5 per heat. Mohole, you pay 23 for 4, but you get some probably with the tile back, so I'm gonna say it's also around 5. And then Solera, you paid 38 for 7, so again, a little over 5. So getting 2 heat for 5 is good, and energy is a little stronger than heat. So in cost, it's not bad. It's just maybe Gen 2 is the last moment to use this. You don't want to invest 10 into heat and energy Gen 3 just for the heat. Right? You want to use the energy, and you can do energy for probably 7 for most of the game. And the extra heat is not going to be that valuable. And so you're are you going to invest an additional delegate in Gen 2, in Gen 1, so you can get it in Gen 2 so you can use this? Then now it's not efficient anymore. So you basically, if you get help from a neutral delegate, you might put this into power, get a nice bonus, and then use that to get 1 more heat and 1 more energy production, and that's as useful as this policy gets. Otherwise, it's just hot garbage. I don't think I've ever paid for it, because I rarely go heavy on heat. But yeah, it's disgusting. It's the worst, and it's never gonna get used past Gen 3. Gen 4 and 4 and after, unless you're desperate for a standard project energy, this is slightly better. But then again, you're not gonna pay to get that party into power, because then it's no longer more efficient than a standard project energy, right? And what's worse, like, you might just put your party with the right tax into power, get some cash, and now the standard project energy is more efficient again. So, yeah, it's useless. Completely useless. I hate it. I think this is something that should be like. I would love if we get a second Senate with or some additional parties to replace the ones we have here. I would really, really love that. If we don't, can we get another Calvinists? Like, can we get another Calvinist policy? Because this one is so bad. Like, turning heat into plants would be better, for example. Or even Helion's ability into cash. No, I wouldn't. No, that would suck too. Never mind. But yeah. Anyway, so just to reiterate, in order, the bonuses I like. My favorite is the Reds. My second favorite is Unity. Third, the Kelvinist. Fourth, Mars. Fifth, Greens. And sixth, Scientists. And for the policies, my favorite is the Greens. Second is the Reds. Third, Unity. Fourth, Mars. Fifth, Scientist. And last, Kelvinist. By like seventh, right? And so I think basically that the three stronger parties are Unity, Greens, and Reds. And it's not weird that you usually see players going heavy into the Greens and Unity all games. I think the Reds are a little harder to use and predict. Like, players don't usually go for them if they are not they're not gonna get the point, right? And the thing is, the player who's last should be going for them instead of Unity, even if you've played a lot of Earth decks. And the other reason is, like, players are also afraid to plan ahead and say, okay, I'm definitely not gonna terraform next turn. I don't wanna hit myself. So that's why I see the Reds get played probably less often than most of them. Well, except the Kelvinists, but I see Scientists and Mars first get delegates often. But I do think the Reds are the best party with the Greens and Unity. I think the Kelvinists are really weak and never see them. I think Mars first are fine early, but yeah, you stop investing after a while. And I think the Scientists are just not helping the player who they should be helping. Unless that player has both science and money, in which case they're probably winning, unless there's like an amazing rush happening. So, yeah, if you get both early, that's usually the best thing you can do in Terraforming Mars. But yeah, anyway, that's it for my video in Turmoil. Let me know what you think. I might do some how to fix videos on, well, it's probably the parties that are last, Calvinist and Scientist. But yeah, leave a comment if you think that's something you'd be interested, and see you next time.